For this video, I'm using the LK Chen Shuang Dao. It's based off of the New Way Dao design in an antique pair from the Qing dynasty. You can find out more information at lkchensword.com. Check it out in the link in the description down below. Hey, what's up? It's Sifu Kuttel, and in this video, we're going to be working with the Seung Dao, and we're going to be doing techniques that are consecutive techniques. So we'll be doing double cuts, and we're going to be focusing on different angles. And this has a similar idea to when we were doing our block up and techniques, because we're using one sword to kind of clear the path. You can absolutely look at these as double attacks, one leading into the other, but for the most part, our first cut is going to be used to position our opponent's blade. We're getting them to react, we're connecting to it, and then we're following up with a technique right behind it. And this is something where it's, again, a little bit easier to develop our ambidexterity because these blades follow the same path, but also I find in a combat context, these work really well, and especially when we're doing our downward vertical. So when you get to that one, take extra notes, okay? You'll see when we get there. Grab your swords, let's go get to work. For our first combination, we are going to use our big steps forward. So we're going to step forward one foot, step forward the other foot, and we're going to keep almost a diagonal bow stance. So it's kind of towards this corner, kind of towards that corner. This will give us the most lateral balance as well as forward balance. Because we're moving both blades into this, we need to be able to keep our body from overextending or going too far forward and losing that balance. Now, we're going to be clearing the path diagonally downward, and then you want to follow that exact same path with the other blade. The key here is to have a little bit of a flick at the end once we make that contact. So I flick, flick, but I still want to have good momentum to carry through. So if my left foot steps forward, my left hand is going to cut first. I turn the blades, I step right, left, okay? So if I'm stepping towards you, 1, 2, and I step forward with my right foot, right hand, then left hand, okay? And typically we'll do this back to back, so we have a forward charging motion as we're stepping here. And this is a really nice way to charge down the opponent, not give them too much space to move in and attack otherwise. For our next technique, we will use the same footwork. So whichever hand is going to begin to clear the path, that's this foot that I'm stepping forward with. And now we'll be using a horizontal path. So we're cutting across horizontally. Make sure that you're leading with the blade edge. So pay attention that you turn those hands. Your front hand will be palm down, your back hand will be palm up, and then you'll have to flip, okay? Now, if I step forward with my left foot, I'm going to lead with that left hand. Cut 1, cut 2, making sure I end with the tip of the blade in front of my body. Okay, so again, I step, cut 1, cut 2. The tip of the blade is in front of my body. Then I can turn over, cut 1 and 2, step, cut 1 and 2, step, cut 1 and 2. There's a lot of range that you can clear with this. We're taking big steps forward. So just practice moving 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, making sure a clean stop here. No need to follow through with this cut. Now, when we're practicing, it's good to keep it at the same level, but you can also practice different heights. So we can be going up towards the head, 1, 2, 1, 2, or we can be going down towards the leg, 1, 2, 1, 2. You can move forward, you can move backward. We have a lot of options when we're just practicing this technique. Now we're going to change up our footwork for the stance. So we're going to have whichever blade is cutting, that same side foot is forward, which means we're going to be using big steps like a horse stance. And you'll notice I do 2 steps. So I actually rotate my foot out because this is setting up for the end position. Notice if I just keep my foot here and I step, I'm in a weird twisted stance. I have to make the adjustment afterward. So it's good to start with a little bit of a pivot first, and then when you step, you can focus on that stepping and you can focus on the actual cut itself. Now, we'll start with both blades back. This is the easiest way to start this is to step 1, we're cutting down vertically, step 2 vertically, okay? So again, 1, 2. I'm clearing the path with that first blade. This can be a double attack, and this one is actually quite effective. It's quick to employ, and it is a nice one because they may adjust to block for that first one, but you clear a lot of ground and you get a lot of range for that second one. So I do encourage you to try this one in your sparring. If you do any kinds of sparring, this is a great technique to work with. And of course, we can just start from that neutral position. I can do more of a tap and then cut forward. Or if I find myself with my blade back, now I can use that to step in. But this is a really great technique. 1, 2, 1, 2, stepping forward. So now let's apply the same principles, clearing the path and stepping forward with the same footwork using that horse stance, and we'll do an upward vertical cut. Now, again, this can be a double attack. This is a nice way to clear that path and then step through and finish it up. Make sure good pressure in the backhand and in the front hand. Don't let the tip of the sword raise up. We want to think of keeping it at head level, and the hand and the pommel of the sword should be slightly higher than the tip of the sword. Okay. Now, one of the things you want to pay attention to is as we do this, keep a good grip and get good extension forward. Okay. This is not the easiest technique to employ in sparring. Upward cuts are difficult to initiate, but they can be very useful. So don't write it off just because it's a little bit harder to do at first. Okay, so again, we'll start by dropping the blades back. We'll step 1, 2, drop the blades back, 1, 2, drop the blades back, 1, 2. Okay, if I'm going towards this corner, I have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so there you have it. Now, you'll find a lot of these techniques within Kung Fu forms, especially in Choi Li Fut. There's a lot of Seung Dao techniques that have these combinations where you're using consecutive cuts. And like I said in the intro, and I did point out in the video itself, we have this double vertical downward cut. This is one of the most effective techniques that you can learn when it comes to sparring. And I'm not saying that this is going to work every single time, but this should be considered as your empty hand equivalent to your jab cross. So this one, if you can work on that double cut advancing forward, it's a very useful technique. And it's something I have mentioned in some other videos too, but I really want to highlight that out of all of these. Though all of them are very good, when you can work with those consecutives, after that first one connects and hits, you have a moment as well. Even though you're prepared to follow that same path, you still have a moment that you can change the path depending on how your opponent adapts to that first motion. Whether it requires you to really step forward and in, or step back, or change the cut to attack a different area. You'll have that, you'll be able to adapt because you're already prepared to follow up with another technique. Now, don't forget to check out all the other videos in the playlist. There's been a lot leading up to this point, so take your time, work on those lessons, and develop them. There may be some things that I mentioned in previous videos that may have a better chance of sinking in now that you have some experience. So from time to time, be sure to go back and check those ones out. And if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next.